This is one of the most shocking and unprecedented moments in modern history. Canada, a proud and independent nation, facing an existential threat from the United States. The world is watching as tensions rise, and the question on everyone's mind is, could Canada really become the 51st state? This isn't just political speculation, it's a real concern fueled by statements from none other than US President Donald Trump himself. The stakes have never been higher, and the silence from one of Canada's most important figures, King Charles III, has only added fuel to the fire. As Prime Minister Justin Trudeau prepares for a high-stakes meeting with the King, the pressure is mounting for a response that could define the future of Canada, as we know it. For decades, the relationship between Canada and the United States has been defined by trade, security cooperation, and shared democratic values. Canada is the US's largest trading partner, and the two nations share the longest undefended border in the world. But Trump's recent rhetoric about annexing Canada has sent shockwaves across North America, leaving many Canadians outraged, confused, and questioning their future. Could this be political posturing, or is there a deeper plan at play? Trudeau, in a recent press conference, made it clear that his government would not tolerate any threats to Canadian sovereignty. He emphasized that Canada's independence is non-negotiable, and that his upcoming meeting with King Charles III is crucial in addressing the concerns of millions of Canadians who feel abandoned by their head of state. Trudeau has made it clear that this isn't just a diplomatic formality, he is seeking an official stance from the King of Canada himself. But why is King Charles III staying silent? The role of the British monarchy in Canada has always been somewhat symbolic, but in moments of national crisis, Canadians expect the head of state to take a stand. Critics argue that his silence has weakened the monarchy's position in Canada, a country where Republican sentiments have been slowly gaining traction. While the movement to abolish the monarchy has historically been small, this issue has brought renewed focus on whether Canada truly needs a monarch who does not actively engage in its most pressing issues. Political analysts believe that King Charles is in a difficult position. As a constitutional monarch, he is expected to remain neutral and only act on the advice of the Canadian government. But is neutrality even an option when Canada's sovereignty is being questioned? Some experts suggest that Charles may be hesitant to upset diplomatic relations between the UK, Canada, and the United States. However, the growing frustration among Canadians indicates that silence may no longer be an acceptable response. Public reaction has been overwhelming. Social media has been flooded with calls for King Charles III to speak up. One user posted, "If King Charles won't even stand up for Canada's sovereignty, then what's the point of having a monarchy?" Another commented, "Canada deserves a head of state that actually cares about its future." Even some former government officials have weighed in, with one saying, "The Canadian government should formally request that King Charles reaffirm Canadian sovereignty. It's his duty." Former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney echoed these sentiments, stating that while many Canadians are frustrated with the King's silence, it is ultimately the responsibility of the Canadian government to seek a statement from him. Constitutional lawyer Lyle Skinner also pointed out that a direct request from Prime Minister Trudeau could change the dynamic, putting pressure on the King to make an official statement. But what happens if Charles refuses to comment? Could this spark a larger conversation about Canada's future with the monarchy? Many Canadians still hold deep respect for Queen Elizabeth II, who served as head of state for over 40% of Canada's history and visited the country 22 times during her reign. However, Charles does not command the same level of affection. His visits to Canada have drawn significantly smaller crowds, and recent polls suggest that support for the monarchy is dwindling. Some believe that this could be the beginning of a major shift in Canada's political landscape. If the monarchy is unwilling or unable to advocate for Canadian sovereignty, what purpose does it serve? Abolishing the monarchy would require constitutional changes, a complex and highly sensitive process that would involve all provinces and Indigenous communities. Given Canada's diverse political and cultural landscape, such a move would be extremely difficult, but not impossible. Meanwhile, across the border, Trump's statements have sparked outrage, but also intrigue among some Americans who see Canada as an attractive economic and strategic asset. The president has long been vocal about his views on US-Canada relations, previously clashing with Trudeau over trade policies and military spending. His latest comments about annexation have led to speculation about whether this is simply another one of his provocative remarks, or if there is a deeper strategy behind it. Economic pressure is one tool that the United States has historically used to influence Canada. Recently, the US government has imposed new tariffs on Canadian goods, a move seen by many as an attempt to destabilize the Canadian economy and increase American leverage. Some experts believe that this is part of a broader effort to push Canada into a position where it may have to make difficult concessions in future trade negotiations. But would Canada ever entertain the idea of closer integration with the US? Most Canadians would likely reject the idea outright, as nationalism and pride in Canada's independence run deep. However, some voices argue that economic realities cannot be ignored. With rising inflation, a housing crisis, and concerns over national security, there may be some who believe that deeper ties with the US could provide economic benefits. But at what cost? Internationally, world leaders are closely monitoring the situation. The European Union has expressed concern over Trump's rhetoric, stating that any attempt to undermine Canadian sovereignty would be met with diplomatic resistance. China and Russia, both of whom have strategic interests in weakening US-led alliances, are also watching carefully. If tensions escalate, this could turn into a global diplomatic issue. Prime Minister Trudeau is also expected to discuss the matter with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer before his meeting with King Charles. Analysts believe that the British government may be hesitant to support any public statement from the King, as it could create tensions with the US. However, some argue that failing to address the issue could further damage the monarchy's reputation in Canada and accelerate the push for republicanism. As the days pass, Canadians are left wondering what will happen next. Will King Charles finally break his silence and reaffirm Canada's sovereignty? Will the Canadian government take further action to secure an official statement? And what will be the long-term consequences of this unprecedented situation? One thing is certain, this is a defining moment for Canada. The nation's sovereignty, identity, and future are at stake. As Trudeau meets with King Charles III, the world waits for answers. The decisions made in the coming weeks could shape Canada's relationship with the monarchy, the United States, and the global community for generations to come. Now, the question is, what do you think? Should King Charles III make an official statement? Should Canada consider breaking ties with the monarchy if he doesn't? And how should the country respond to Trump's annexation threats? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on this developing story.